There was a very basic question right now which deserves an answer, and that is, do you think Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people? If you think the answer to that is yes, then you believe that the gravest possible crime is being committed with the direct complicity and involvement of Western governments, principally the US, which is indeed facilitating it. And you want to do all you can to stop that. Now, in the US, I understand there is the terror of Donald Trump retaking the presidency, and that has caused a lot of people who see themselves as progressive, even leftists, to believe they must throw everything they can at stopping that from happening. And I think that is causing some to bend reality about Gaza. I'm just going to be honest about that. Look, people are desperate to stop Trump. They're desperate as well to stop genocide. And they're hoping upon hope that Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, will change course. But they also fear that putting meaningful pressure on her using the leverage of an election campaign is too grave a risk, because it may well end up with Donald Trump in the White House again. Now, look, I've got an advantage. I'm a British political commentator, and nobody credible is delusional enough to believe that I will have any impact one way or the other on the US presidential election. So I can just say what I think. And my view is the segment of Kamala Harris's speech on Gaza shows there is no evidence, no meaningful evidence that she intends to change course. Let's just listen to what she said.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
So she says now's the time to get a deal. Okay, what's the deal? Because the deal currently being pushed by the Biden administration, of which she is part, she serves as vice president, is not a ceasefire. It's a temporary cessation before the mass slaughter begins again, allowing Israel to set an impossible war goal of destroying Hamas, which in practice just means waging war until the Palestinian people can no longer live, whoever survives in Gaza, as well as permanently dividing Gaza up in half and preventing civilians from returning to their homes in the north, amongst other things. She says she will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself and always ensure that Israel has the ability to defend itself. Let's be clear about what that means. It means she will keep handing Israel limitless amounts of weapons to kill Palestinians. Israel has defined its right to defend itself in practice as regarding the Palestinian people as a whole as an existential threat, and therefore waging genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza and paving the way for full annexation of the West Bank, with life for the Palestinian people there made increasingly intolerable. She mentioned sexual violence on the 7th of October. She must know now about the overwhelming evidence of sexual violence perpetrated by the Israeli armed forces against Palestinians. We had Israelis, including Israeli ministers, rioting in support of the right of soldiers to rape Palestinians, after Israeli soldiers were literally filmed on camera raping a detainee. There is multiple cases of sexual violence, with Save the Children briefing about sexual violence against children, while even mainstream media outlets with frankly terrible records on reporting on the current horror, like the New York Times, like CNN, have reported multiple examples of rape by Israeli forces against Palestinians. She mentions the slaughter of young people, and she's right. The killing of civilians on 7 October was unacceptable. It was a war crime. Where does that leave the Palestinians? 36 children were killed on the 7th of October. Now, I realise she was referring here to young adults, Israelis predominantly in their 20s and 30s. Well, does she realise how many Palestinians under 40, if we're going on that basis alone, have been killed since the 7th of October? I mean, officially it's 14,000 children, but that is those who are 17 years or old or younger. In reality, that's a drastic underestimate. So it's likely overall, if we're talking about Palestinians under 40, to be tens of thousands. Do they need to have been partying at a music festival for Kamala Harris to condemn their brutal slaughter? But she does mourn the Palestinian people, some might say. Well, just compare the difference. She condemns Hamas specifically for their atrocity. She specifically names Hamas. She says it's a terrorist organisation. She condemns it for the horror it caused. But then she says at the same time what happened in Gaza over the last 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. She says the scale of suffering is heartbreaking. You could say that about a tornado or a hurricane or an earthquake. She doesn't attribute any responsibility. It's just all terribly sad. Aww. She then says, to the greatest applause, that the deal to be done will then mean the Palestinian people can realise their right to dignity, security, freedom and self-determination. Now, on the one hand, this does show the enthusiasm that exists amongst the democratic faithful for Palestinian freedom. Fine, let's go for the positive. It sounds good. But this has been spun by democratic supporters as something new because they are desperate to believe, even if it means overriding the facts. Back in May, President Biden lauded the idea of progress being made and said, and all of this would create the conditions for a different future and a better future for the Palestinian people. One of self-determination, dignity, security and freedom. This path is available once the deal is struck. It's just the same rhetoric. It's the same rhetoric, and it doesn't mean a thing because Israel is not going to change course because of words. It will only change course because of deeds, action. If the US keeps giving Israel weapons and aid and diplomatic and political support, what reason or incentive does it have to change course? Look, the Democrats couldn't even give a vetted Palestinian who had endorsed Kamala Harris and who had a vetted speech take the stage at its convention, symbolic of the erasure of the Palestinian people. Meanwhile, the slaughter, enabled, facilitated by the US, continues after her speech. In one strike, 11 members of a single family wiped out by Israeli weapons, including 2 children. In central Gaza, the body of a decapitated child lay on the street. I'm not going to show you that picture. A journalist, Ali Timer, killed as well. I just want to show you one last thing. It's a video posted by Meadow Halimi just 2 days ago. A 19-year-old Palestinian. Just have a watch.
Let me show you what a day of my tent life looks like. I started the day with a cup of coffee, and then I went to lay down because it was so hot. After a bit, I took my phone and laptop to charge him. This is what they look like. And when I got there, I ordered a lemonade. So refreshing. As I waited for them to charge, I started working on designs for my new secret project. I then got the phone and went to get a haircut. I need one. Tell me how it looks. Right now it's 6 p.m, so I'm almost done with everything in my day. I went to the tent cafe to get connected to the internet, and I edited the video. Then I went live on TikTok. And that's it for today. Don't forget to drop a follow and like the video.
Friends of Meadow Halimi now report that he has succumbed to the wounds that he had suffered after an airstrike, an Israeli airstrike in Gaza, left him in a coma. Go to his Instagram profile, Meadow_Halimi. Go look at his videos. This was a young man who lived, who despite unbearable circumstances so hellish that virtually none of us can really imagine what they're like. Full of joy, full of happiness, and despite it all, full of love for life. Just 5 days ago, he posted his grief at his 11-year-old cousin Ahmad being killed by the Israeli state. And in that piece mourning his slaughter, he also mourned those other innocent Palestinians who have been butchered alongside him. And he finished that post with the following. Each one of them had a life, dreams, talents, hopes, people whom they loved. No one deserves this. No one does deserve this. 11-year-old Ahmed did not deserve this. 19-year-old Meadow did not deserve this. The tens of thousands of Palestinians slaughtered by the Israeli state with the direct involvement of the US state did not deserve this. This genocide has to end. We have to stop it. We have to fight with everything we have to end this genocide. And that means being honest about the role and the position of a US administration which is soaked in blood. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your thoughts, your comments. Help keep the show on the road at patreon.com/OJS84. Listen to some podcasts. I'll speak to you soon.